The Justin Bartley Show.
They've already started to feel the effects.
My costs of doing business continue to rise.
How do you have this conversation?
You pray the way I pray.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Bartley on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
I have never, knock on wood, never had to serve on jury duty. Never happened. And I'd like to keep up that streak. I don't know if you've ever gotten out of jury duty. If you have some sort of tip, if you have some sort of, some help with this, our very own Steve Kelly is serving right now. Look, I know that it's, your duty to serve and all that. Look, I'm fine with that. I understand it. But boy, it is a pain, isn't it? So if I could shift that in my favor, might be all for it. Unless I could get on a really cool case. And I think a lot of folks probably think this way. If I could get like on an OJ-style case, write my book about it, well, I think a lot of those people do that, and attorneys probably trying to weed those folks out if they can, but to talk about this. Mazin Sbaiti is trial attorney with Steckler Law, stecklerlaw.com. Tanya Kraus-Phelan with a criminal law professor at Cooley Law School as well here in our own backyard to talk about this new decision that they can do a little snooping into your social media, what you post on Facebook. Mazin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me again, Justin.
Tell me a little bit about this because, I guess if your employers can look at your Facebook and your social media and the things that you put online, I would assume that that's fair game for everybody. What was the controversy with this?
There were a few judges who had been limiting lawyers' ability to access publicly available information. There were also some allegations of how far is too far. These are jurors who aren't willingly submitting themselves to jury duty, so does this invade their privacy? Those are the types of discussions that were happening predominantly at the ABA, but this is something that's been going on for a while. We use it for juries. We also use it to find witnesses. We also use it to look for background information on other parties. So if it's in the public domain, we consider it fair game.
What are the kind of things that you consider when you look at who should or should not serve on a jury? And does it surprise you that one of our very own, Steve Kelly, the morning host here, got selected for jury duty, and they haven't let him off yet? I figured, gosh, there's no way they're going to make this guy serve.
Well, the main thing you look for are disqualifying facts about a juror. Typically, if they've had events in their lives or in the lives of their families, they're similar enough to the type of case where they might be predisposed against your client. And as a lawyer, we're going to probably want to disqualify that juror or strike that juror from the dais for cause.
Like if somebody is just ultimately really opinionated, I would not see maybe necessarily like a Rush Limbaugh getting picked to serve on jury duty because the guy's, he's very opinionated and let's be honest, he's persuasive for some folks and abrasive for others. And, that's a guy that you probably don't want in a jury, do you?
Well, it depends on which side he's opinionated. If he's opinionated for a side that I think is going to be favorable to me, I actually want him on the jury because then he'll help me convince the other jurors.
He gets struck by the other guy, though, or no?
Right. He's likely to get struck by the other side, though. That's right.
On the phone with us as well, Tanya Kraus-Phelan joining us from Cooley Law School here in our own backyard to talk about this decision as well. And I got to ask you, and both of you, but we'll start with Tanya. Do you ever see times where folks try to get out, or maybe they'll try excuses, or maybe they'll say something or do something, and you can tell like this person just doesn't want to serve? What happens in that case?
Well, prior to starting teaching at Cooley in 2005, I practiced criminal defense in Kent County for 17 and a half years, and I can assure you that people come into jury selection, not many, but a significant minority who have it in their head that I don't want to serve. I'm going to do anything, say anything I can to get off of serving on this jury. And my experience has been the judges don't take too kindly to that. They can see right through it. Now, having said that, if someone comes in and, for example, they say, I am racist, I hate all people of a particular ethnicity, they're going to be off the jury.
Right.
Because you can't take the chance that they truly mean what they're saying and will hold that against your client during during the jury selection process and during trial.
Have you seen that happen before?
I have. Unfortunately, I have seen that.
And is that effective? Do judges, do they have an issue with that?
Well, they do, because remember, the whole purpose of all the questions that the judges and lawyers ask during the jury selection process are to pick the 12 people who can be fair and impartial for this particular defendant in this particular case. Mm-hmm. So getting to the question you posed in the first place, if we look at social media, if we look at information that individuals have placed out in the public, is that fair game? And my gut says, yeah, it's fair game, because they're expressing opinions that we need to know as the litigator on this case if it makes them fair or biased.
So, and I think you probably get an more accurate picture when it comes to social media, too, of what maybe some folks are, what they really truly believe in. Mazin Sbaiti, we're going to ask you as well. You tell me, how much access do you get to what's on social media? Is it only the stuff that's public, or is there more to it?
Well, it's only supposed to be the stuff that's public, and of course public is a slightly moving line. That's why the ABA put in the restriction that you can't friend somebody or ask to be their friend.
Oh.
You know, if you really are their friend, they're supposed to be removed anyway. Jurors aren't supposed to be friends with any of the lawyers or their staff or any of the parties. But so lawyers can't use that as a pretext to gaining access to the inner sanctum or sort of sidestepping jurors' privacy settings. So the restriction is meant to respect jurors' privacy settings. Really, that raises another issue, which is that if half the jury pool has their privacy settings on and the other half doesn't, you're going to get a lot of information about one half of the jury pool, not so much of the other. And so lawyers have to be very careful not to tend towards the devil they know versus the devil they don't know. There has to be a little bit more sophistication in how that information is processed.
Well, how sophisticated is this? I mean, a good point. Nan just called up on the phone and told us that she actually got out of jury duty because she told them that she listened to Rush Limbaugh. So how sophisticated when it comes to your Facebook? Think about your page or your profile. Surely there are other pages that you've liked. There might be television shows that you've liked. There might be movies or books that you've read that you've liked, or pages of other commentators or political your political affiliations when it comes to what you put on Facebook. How sophisticated is the process of going through, I would say, collecting that data, that information, and then using it to build a profile with someone? I'll ask you that, Tanya.
Can I just make a point of observation? I started practicing in '89, so I'm an old goat.
Yeah.
And I learned...
I wouldn't say that now.
I learned old school, and we were taught to look at the magazines that the jury pool brought in, to see what they're reading as they wait to be called. What kind of hobbies did they bring with us? Were they knitters? And we learned old school to look for those kinds of things. Now, fast forward to 2014. That's not really any different than what we'd be looking at in the things that people have made public on their social media settings. We're looking to see what are they interested in, what are their opinions on things. Because remember, there are two ways a juror can be chosen or deselected from the process, if you will. And that's for cause, and that's if they can't be fair and unbiased, or there's some other legal limitations to why a person is ineligible to serve. But the rest of it is all lawyer gut feel based on their idea of who the perfect juror for their case and their client is and who isn't. And so in a lot of ways, media, social media, just highlights and makes more public tools that we as lawyers have been using for years in the jury selection process.
Mazin Sbaiti, let me ask you about that too. I mean, do you know a little bit more? We get a little bit more into detail of what Tanya just kind of pulled the curtain back about, with the magazines. How intensive and how critical do they get when it comes to being able to pick apart what is on that Facebook page?
Tanya's absolutely right. There's a whole body of literature written mainly by psychology PhDs, many of whom serve as jury consultants now, that look for all types of cues that help you build a probability about what a juror's leanings are, what their biases are. And it's not a science. It's definitely an art.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of sophisticated tools, and the more data you have, the better you can guesstimate where a jury might go. And their Facebook postings and their Twitter feeds and all that just simply add more data for us to process and to sort of check ourselves against. But Tanya is absolutely right. It ends up being, what do I think this juror's leanings are going to be? Do I want them to serve? And, of course, I'm choosing among usually 6 out of 10 or 12 people. If it's a civil case, 12 people out of a much larger pool if it's a criminal case. And so you have a limited universe of alternatives. So you're really judging, okay, is it person A versus person B? And that's what those tools are really designed for.
Such a fascinating conversation about who gets picked for jury duty and who gets, when it comes to the process of picking the jury that you want. We've seen movies, and I don't remember the one with Keanu Reeves was in that movie talking about, or maybe Tom Cruise, I think maybe The Firm, but these guys, one of those movies dealt with a guy who was really good at picking juries. Who are these people, and when are they brought in? These types of experts.
Well, I think it depends on the case and the resources available to the team. I can tell you, I did a lot of indigent defense, and we in indigent defense cases really didn't have the ability to hire jury experts.
Right.
So the lawyer really had to refer and research many of the resources we've just been talking about to try and develop the art and skill of picking a juror. So there are experts out there who specialize in this compilation of psychological data, social cues, et cetera, that help lawyers decide who is the best profiled person to serve on this juror.
And Mazin, is that a mix of science and magic, or like voodoo, or is it one or the other?
It's more art. I think there's really not a whole lot of science. It's certainly not magic. The most famous jury consultant right now is probably Dr. Phil, although that's not what he's famous for. But that was his career before he became a talk show personality. Yeah, he was Oprah's jury consultant on a case here in Texas.
Wow.
And so you look at it, and it really is about understanding people. And Tanya's exactly right. As lawyers, we have to develop that when we don't have the benefit of a jury consultant who can help us look at it. And a lot of cases, big civil cases, get mock tried in front of jury pools that will mirror the jury pool that's going to happen in the case. It gets very expensive, but that's also how you can build these profiles and find out, okay, so if we have, X type of person above a certain age, they're going to probably think this way, like this group of people over here. So you can do focus groups. There's a lot of marketing that enters this process as well, or science from marketing.
Sure, and I think that might be the most fascinating part of this is how to read what people think and how they feel about a certain subject. And then we're talking about persuasion. We're talking about a little bit of a manipulation as well. And when it comes to the big, you talk your big money trials, we have a lot of money's on the line. Then that's where I guess these things are being used. I guess like Tanya just said, you wouldn't normally see this type of thing in an average everyday trial, but it's really fascinating to think what is the kind of the person, a consultant, a Dr. Phil, working with Oprah. What kind of cost is related with that? What does he make in a case like that?
Really good jury consultants can make more than the lawyers on the case because they're that important. And they usually charge per project, and it can be tens of thousands of dollars.
That is something else. And really, who knows how well, how ineffective these folks are.
That's right. It still comes down to an art, and predicting what people are going to do in any given circumstance is really a challenge.
Somebody suggests here on our Facebook page, by the way, facebook.com/woodradio. And if you've liked us on Facebook, well, that might be interesting. I don't know if you get selected or deselected or not, but Roger says if you want off a jury, just post that you got notified that you're going to be serving on a jury, and maybe that would help to sway the needle in your favor of folks taking a look and saying, well, maybe this person's just going to leak everything about the case and talk about it. How much of consideration does that work when you're talking about a high-profile case? You know that you're looking, as we discussed the O.J. Simpson case in the big anniversary just last week or so, where you look at the jurors who might be writing or thinking about writing a book as they're serving on the jury. Does that come into play at all, Tanya?
Well, I don't know if the judge who's trying a case, I don't know if his or her immediate concern is what the jurors might do after the case is over. First and foremost, remember one of the judge's obligations is to ensure that the parties receive a fair, lawful trial.
Mm-hmm.
And in high-profile cases like that, it is not uncommon for the judge to exercise his or her discretion to sequester the jury. In other words, cut them off from all outside contact, electronic or otherwise. And the purpose for that is to ensure that the jurors are not being influenced by discussions being had in the public, in the media about the case, when the people in the public and the media don't necessarily know all of the facts and information that are being presented pursuant to rules of evidence and legal issues in the courtroom.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, Tanya, because there's some talk about what access jurors had during the George Zimmerman trial last year. So, they were talking about whether or not they were able to watch television or whether or not they were able to somehow get online or talk to friends and relatives. And when you're sequestered that amount of time, it's probably hard to keep folks cut off, right?
I think it is hard to keep folks cut off. Typically, they'll be ordered not to read or view anything dealing with the particular trial, not a total blackout. So saying that leads you to the next question, which is, well, if it's not a total blackout, if they're not totally prohibited from watching the news, reading papers, etc., then how easy is it for them to flip their eyes to the article about their case or to push the button online to an article about their case? And that is an ongoing concern that judges and lawyers across this country face every day.
Tanya Kraus-Phelan, criminal law professor at Cooley Law School, of course. Thank you for joining us today. And as well as Mazin Sbaiti, who joins us, trial attorney with Steckler Law, stecklerlaw.com. Thank you, both of you, for joining us and shedding us a little bit of light on how this thing works. And we see a little bit of, I guess, on television and in the movies, but thank you for giving us the real-life update on this.
Thank you.
Have a great day. News Radio 1300 to 106.9 FM, the Justin Barkley Show rolls on next. We're back coming up at 10:06, and we'll check news and headlines. Glenn Beck joins us at 10:06, and you can join us online. Continue the conversation. Love to know how you got out of jury duty as they're on. Steve Kelly is serving now, looking for excuses himself. Online, Facebook.com/Wood Radio, and Twitter @Wood Radio. The Justin Barkley Show back tomorrow morning at 9:06.